Hello guys and girls, my name is Levitee here. Today we have the top 10 defensive Pokemon to draft in League format. Now last time we did the top offensive mons, so now we are going to be diving into the defense portion. If you want to go ahead and check out the offensive portion we did a couple weeks back, the video to that will be in the link in the description below, and also there will be a card of it. Next time we'll be diving into tier 2 and counting down the best defensive and offensive mons from there as well. So if you're interested in that, then make sure you go ahead and subscribe and click the like button if you enjoy. Without further ado, let's dive right into the list. Okay, so at the number 10 spot, we have Heatran. Obviously, looking at its stats, Heatran has base 91 HP, 90 attack, 106 defense, 130 special attack, 106 special defense, and 77 speed. Now, part of the reasons why Heatran is down this low is because it's times 4 weak to ground. And being times 4 weak to Earthquake is not such a good thing, especially with how good of a move Earthquake is and how popular it is among a lot of Pokemon. But Heatran does have a lot of things going for it. For example, the notable moves we have are Stealth Rocks, Taunt, Magma Storm, Flash Cannon, Earth Power, and Toxic. This thing can set up your rocks. Also, with the ability to have Flash Fire, you're immune to fire types. So you can freely send it in on most fire types, and you can hit them back with a hardy Earth Power. But Heatran, it has very good special attack as well. So this thing can't always be run defensively. It's a very good offensive Pokemon as well. But Heatran, it's, like I said, being times 4 weak to ground really hinders it a lot, but nonetheless, it's still a phenomenal Pokemon to pick up in draft league format. If you can have the right support for it, Heatran can be very good on your team. But like I said before, this thing doesn't even need to be run defensive all the time. You can be run offensive as well. Choice Scarf Heatran is a pretty popular set as well. And having the base 130 special attack on a quote-unquote defensive mon is very good if you ask me. It means not only will you be able to take hits, but you'll be able to do back hard hits, especially with the 130 special attack and the ability with Magma Storm to lock in your opponent. If you send in Heatran and your opponent has a big threat you want to get rid of fast and they can't do anything to Heatran and your opponent doesn't switch out, click Magma Storm and that's it. You can click Toxic from there and just stall out your opponent. But yeah, Heatran, a very good fire type to grab in league format. If you have the right support for it, Heatran can be very good with it. For example, Taboo is very good with Heatran, of course, with its ability to have the damage of ground type attacks, example Earthquake. But yeah, there's really not much to really say on Heatran. It's just, like I said it a whole bunch of times, that times 4 weak to ground really hinders it. At the number 9 spot, we have Latias. Latias is down this low just because it's oftentimes not necessarily a defensive mon. You can use this thing offensive as well, like the Heatran case, but more or less people will use offensive Latias a bit more than defensive. But let's take a look at its stats. 80 HP, 80 attack, 90 defense, 110 special attack, 130 special defense, and 110 speed. So very good special side of its moves or stats, and its speed is also very good with 110, and its HP is okay with 80. Defense is alright with base 90. Like I said, Latias is down this low because it's more or less ran offensive than defensive, but it's not to say that this thing can't be ran defensive at all. It has very good stats to be ran defensively, especially with the ability to Calm Mind Up on this thing. You can boost up your special defense, and then you can afford to run more EVs in defense, and its HP stat is okay, pretty good, I guess, for quote-unquote wall. I actually wouldn't call Latias a wall, but this thing has a lot of things going for it. A really good defogger to pick up. If you really want a strong defogger, Latias is a great option to pick up for you. Also has the option to have good recovery with Recover / Roost if you want to go ahead and rock with one of those. And another cool aspect to Latias is you can Healing Wish up. So let's say Latias is no use anymore in the match and you have Healing Wish. You can Healing Wish up, maybe a big threat on your side that is to your opponent. So Healing Wish, really nice move to have on that thing, and it's not listed on the layout right now, but you also have Reflect type. Reflect type is a very interesting move. You become the same type as your opponent, and it's the same instance. If your opponent has a big threat you are scared of, maybe you can transform into his type, and then maybe it can't do that or do anything to you. For example, I saw this example in another league. It was a Alolan Muck versus Latias. Latias clicked Reflect type, and the Alolan Muck could not do anything to the Latias that was transformed into the Alolan Muck. But Latias, it has a lot of good things going for it. It's sister to Latios. Latias, it's very good stats across the board besides attack, and its HP are meh. But yeah, there's really not much to say on Latias. Good dragon type if you want to go ahead and look up or grab one of those. A Dragonium Z is also popular in this thing. Now I know that's more of an offensive set, but I thought I would just list it there. Just for why not. Now the number 8 spot, we have Tapu Fini. Now Tapu Fini, looking at its stats, it is base 70 HP, 75 attack, 115 defense, 95 special attack, 130 special defense, and 85 speed. So it has decently good defenses. 115 defense and 130 special defense is pretty good. Its HP stat not so good though with base 70. The reason why what makes Tapu Fini really good is Misty Surge. With the Misty terrain up, you cannot be toxic, so your opponent cannot toxic stall you, and just the ability to be a fairy type, I think, makes this thing decently good, especially Tapu at that case, because you get access to Nature's Madness, which is a great move to have on this thing. You basically get to do 50 damage to your opponent if they're coming in and have full health, which is really good factor to Tapu Fini and really all of the Tapus. Also a really nice defogger, as the same case with Latias. It is not weak to rocks, which is nice. But Tapu Fini, it's a little bit overshadowed by the rest of the Tapus. It is arguably the worst one, which is also why it's this low on the list. But it's also really the only defensive one. Tapu Koko, Tapu Lele, and Tapu Bulu are usually all offensive. Make sure there's Assault Vest Tapu Bulu, but it's still more ran offensively with its moves and EVs and such. But Tapu Fini, like I said, good defogger, has the ability to Calm Mind up as well. And this move is not listed here, but it does get access to Haze. So if your opponent wants to try and set up on this thing, nope, that's not going to happen. And also, speaking of not letting your opponent not set up, you also have the ability to Taunt. Really nice feature on this thing as well. And then you get like Scald and Moonblast for good stab moves to have on this thing. Scald, of course, have the possibility to burn, but with the base 95 special attack, it's a little bit hard to get some kills with Tapu Fini, which is why Calm Mind is really nice to have on this team, because that way you boost your special defense, which is already good enough, and then your special attacking gets boosted. In the same case with Latias, you can afford to put more EVs in defense and HP them, or special attack, whatever you may choose. At the number 7 spot, we have Skarmory. Skarmory, looking at its stats, has base 65 HP, 80 attack, 140 defense, 40 special attack, 70 SPDF, and 70 in speed. So you look at Skarmory, and you're like, okay, the only good thing this thing has on it is 140 defense. Honestly, if Skarmory had like even base 80 HP, this thing would be very good. It's very good now, but it would be even better. A Skarmory, one of the best defoggers to grab in League format, also one of the best hazard setters in League format. Skarmory with the ability to have defog. Just the reason why it's one of the best defoggers is because of the steel type. Steel typing is just such a good typing now. It really helps Skarmory a lot. It also prevents him from being weak to rocks, so you have that defog option as well. And with the sturdy option, you get to guarantee live anything from your opponent. They think you're going to knock you out with a Thunderbolt? Nope, sturdy. Think you're going to knock them out with a Fire Blast? Nope, sturdy. And with that option, it also gives you the opportunity to get your hazards up, aka Stealth Rocks and Spikes. This thing is a really good hazard stacker with those options, of course. And then it has the ability to phase out your opponent with Whirlwind or Roar. But, so if your opponent thinks they can set up on this thing, nope, not going to happen. And I've also seen this before. I've seen Swords Dance Skarmory, quote-unquote offensive Skarmory. Very interesting. And Skarmory, of course, has the ability to heal up with Roost. Now, Roost, of course, gets rid of his flying typing, so if your opponent predicts an Earthquake, or predicts you to go for Roost and clicks Earthquake, you're in a bit of trouble. So that's one downtime to Skarmory. But, nonetheless, Skarmory is still a phenomenal Pokemon. Very good physical wall. If you get good Pokemon to pair it up with, this thing is going to be an offensive monster. It won't die. Just period. And its special defense is not all bad, but it's not good either with base 70. And like I said before, if this thing had like base 80 HP, it would be so much better. Alright, at the number 6 spot, we have Tangrowth. Now, looking at Tangrowth's stats, he's 100 HP, 100 in attack, 125 in defense, 110 special attack, 50 speed def, and 50 in speed. Tangrowth is just honestly such a bulky Pokemon. Really good stats besides special defense and speed. But speaking of its special defense, Assault Vest Tangrowth is very popular on this thing. And it has offensive options. This thing gets a lot of cool stuff. It gets Earthquake, Knockoff, Sludge Bomb, just to name a few. It also gets Brick Break for fighting options, Rock Slide. So this thing has a lot of cool offensive options going for Tangrowth. And base 110 special attack and 100 attack is not bad at all, especially for a bulky Pokemon like this. And the nice thing about Tangrowth is it still has options if you don't run Assault Vest. So it's not like Assault Vest is the only good set on this thing, because it gets options like Sleep Powder, Levitee, Synthesis, you know, your usual grass type shenanigans. But Tangrowth, such a good Pokemon with the Regenerator ability. You get to heal up when you switch out. A really nice feature to Tangrowth, really nice feature to any Regenerator Pokemon. But yeah, there's really not much to say on Tangrowth. It's phenomenal defense stat with 125. Paired with an Assault Vest, this thing is a sponge Pokemon, will not die. Base 100 HP really helps this thing out a lot. And like I said before, gets really nice offensive options. Like I said earlier, Earthquake, Knockoff, Rock Slide, Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, etc, etc, etc. Also get Swords Dance, if you want to go ahead and maybe run an offensive Swords Dancing Tangrowth. You never know what can happen, depends on the matchup in the league. But yeah, Tangrowth also, I haven't mentioned this yet, also has the ability to run Rocky Helmet with a really good defense stat. You get to handle those really offensive powerhouses like Mega Lopunny. You throw on the Rocky Helmet and Tangrowth can deal with that fairly well. But yeah, there's really not much to say about Tangrowth. One of the best grass types you can grab in League format. One of the best defensive grass types, I should say. And speaking of grass types, entering the top 5, we have Ferrothorn. Ferrothorn, looking at its stats, base 74 HP, 94 attack, 131 defense, 54 special attack, my mistake, 116 in speed def, and 20 in speed. Ferrothorn, very phenomenal Pokemon, very good. In my opinion, one of the best bulky grass types you can grab in League format. Of course, being times for weak to fire is a very downside to this thing, but oftentimes you will see Ferrothorn paired up on rain teams or with a good Pokemon that can take fire type attacks. For example, maybe a bulky dragon type, a good flash Firemon. But Ferrothorn, what makes this thing so good is Iron Barbs and Rocky Helmet. Your opponent, if they're making contact moves, then they will take a lot of chip damage, especially if they're Life Orb on top of that. Then they will be taking Iron Barbs, Rocky Helmet, and Life Orb, and maybe they're going to use a recoil move like Head Smash. I don't know why Head Smash popped in my head, but that's a lot of recoil your opponent could possibly take. And also, add on hazards. And speaking of hazards, Ferrothorn, almost said Skarmory, Ferrothorn has the ability to set up spikes and stealth rocks. So like Skarmory's case, it's a really good hazard stacker in that case. One of the downsides to Ferrothorn though is it doesn't really have reliable recovery. No synthesis, no recover, none of that. But on the plus side of that, it does get Leech Seed, so maybe you want to run Protect and Leech Seed and Leftovers, get residual health back in that factor. And this thing gets offensive options like Gyro Ball, Power Whip, and Knockoff. Knockoff, always a good move to have as you get rid of your opponent's item. Also, Ferrothorn has the ability to explode if you want to run an explosion Ferrothorn. And also, I've seen Swords Dance Ferrothorn before, and it OHKO'd a Mega Venusaur with an Iron Head. So, don't sleep on Swords Dance offensive Ferrothorn. It also gets options like Thunder Wave if you want to go ahead and slow down a potential big threat. For example, if your opponent has an Entei and they send it in on a Ferrothorn, you Thunder Wave that thing, boom. There's a little bit of the problem taken care of. That is the Entei. But yeah, there's not really much to say on Ferrothorn. Very good defensive stats, 131 defense, phenomenal, and 116 special defense, also very good. Really good electric switching as you resist electric stab by ×4. At that, most electric types will carry HP fire on this thing. Like I said, being ×4 weak to fire, is not the best thing in the world. But like I said, most people will pair this thing up on a rain team. At the number 4 spot, we have Zapdos, and looking at Zapdos' stats, it is base 90 HP, 90 attack, 85 in defense, 125 in special attack, 90 special defense, and 100 speed. So like Latias' case, Zapdos also has more of an offensive thing going for it, with the base 125 special attack, really good special attack stat from that thing. And you may be thinking at its defenses and saying, it doesn't have the best defenses, why is this thing at the number 4 spot? It's because it's just well-rounded across the board. And the ability to have Roost on this thing means it can recover up. It's also one of the best defoggers you can grab in the format. Sure, being times or weak to rocks is pretty bad, but at the same time, Zapdos proves its worthiness as one of the best defoggers in the game. And also in not Gen 7, in Ultra Sun and Moon, Zapdos now has the ability to be able to run static in defog, making it really good. You can send this thing on like maybe Infernape, that's clicking Flare Blitz, potentially get a static para on that thing, and that Infernape is crippled. Also, Discharge is a very popular move on this thing, with the 30% chance to paralyze your opponent. Discharge, very popular in this thing. This thing also has the ability to set screens with reflective light screen if you want to go ahead and run that route. Also has Thunder Wave if you want more reliable paralyzing. Gets U-turn and Volt Switch, so you have the option of double pivot, Volt Turn right there. Also, Whirlwind, same thing with Skarmory. If your opponent's trying to set up, you can just Whirlwind them out. And Tailwind is a nice move to have if you want to just boost the speed of your opponent, or not your opponent, your team. But Zapdos, really good Pokemon overall, one of the best electric types you can grab, bulky electric types. There's not that many, but Zapdos is a very good one at that. It sucks that it gets no really flying stab like Hurricane or Air Slash. I really wish it did though. Gen 8, you just wait, Zapdos is getting Hurricane or Air Slash. Yeah, I think that's really it on Zapdos. At the number 3 spot, we have Clefable. So looking at Clefable's stats, base 95 HP, 70 attack, 73 in defense, 95 in special attack, and 90 special defense and 60 in speed. Looking at its defense stats, you may ask, why is Clefable on this? Its defense stats are mediocre. Well, because Clefable has the option to stop. Well, I shouldn't say stop setup. It has the ability, yeah, it stops setup. I was thinking of Mold Breaker there for a second. That ignores abilities. But unaware, stops your opponent from setting up. You're immune, of course. A really nice feature on Fable. Also, Magic Guard is also a super nice ability on this thing. You're only affected by direct attacks. So Stealth Rocks or really any hazards are not a problem for this thing because of the Magic Guard ability. A Keep Charm, you're not going to be using that. Never. Unaware is probably the best ability on this thing, but it's not like Magic Guard is any bad or better bad, because Magic Guard is still phenomenal. And I think what makes Fable really well, or really good, is because it's a Fairy type. Fairy type just makes this thing, add Fairy type to anything, and it's immediately going to get better. That's just how Fairy types are. But Fable has so many options going for it. Being a normal type before, it got so many coverage options because it was a normal type. For example, this thing gets Fire Blast and Flamethrower, so you can hit Steel types on that side. So if you want to run a Calm Minding Clefable and you don't want to have to worry about Steel type shutting you down, just run Flamethrower. Then that deals with the Steel types, no problem. And I forgot to mention this, also a good Stealth Rock setter. It's just, yeah, really good rock setter. And then you have recovery options like Soft Boiled, just having recovery on any defensive, reliable recovery on any defensive mod is super nice. Also gets the ability to Cleric with Heal Bell, also a really nice feature on that thing. Knock Off as well. That's really it. Not much to say on Fable. It's just such a bulky Pokemon. If you want to be that guy and run Cosmic Power, you can be that guy if you so choose. Also gets Wish, but you will most likely be using Wish over Soft Boiled. But yeah, I think that's really it on Fable. At the number 2 spot, we have Mew. Mew, the mythical Pokemon, of course, having 100 stats across the board. Now, Mew can do literally anything. It can do so much, but we're just going to be looking at its defense department. For example, it can be ran as an offensive nasty plot sweeper, but I don't have that listed on there because we're going to be looking at more of its defensive stuff and what it can do there. Ability Synchronize, you bounce back. Statuses, I think. Let me check if another Pokemon burns. Okay, so you bounce back, burn, poison, or paralysis. Really nice. So if your opponent is going to click Toxic, send in your Mew, bounce that back, and there you go. Your opponent is crippled. Also, a Mew, really good defogger as well. Like I said, not being weak to rocks makes this thing a really good defogger. You can freely send it in on rocks without being worried about taking 25%. You just take normal damage from rocks and send it in and click defog. Also, Roost, very good option to have on this thing. And the same deal with Fable, also get stealth rock options as well. There's just so many things Mew can do well. It's such a good support mod. With Will-O-Wisp, of course, as well. If you run Will-O-Wisp, you can afford to run more special defense investment because you'll be burning your opponent. Will-O-Wisp, of course, has the option to miss, though, which does suck a little bit. But yeah, there's really not much to say on Mew. It's just such a diverse Pokemon. Phenomenal Pokemon. Which is why it's at the number 2 spot. Now this one should not have been a surprise to anyone. At the number 1 spot, we have Celesteela. Celesteela, looking at its stats base, 97 HP, 101 attack, 103 defense, 107 special attack, 101 in SPDF, and 61 in speed. Celesteela is just a monster. It's such a good Pokemon. One of the best steel types, if not the best steel types you can pick up in League format. Celesteela is just such a... I just can't say it enough. It's just such a good Pokemon. If this thing got defog or Roost, I think it would be banned in most leagues. To be honest, I'm pretty sure it would be. Because one of the niche to Celesteela is same deal with Ferrothorn. It doesn't get reliable recovery, but it's the same deal with Ferrothorn. Like I said, just run Leech Seed, Leftovers, Attack. There you go, residual health back. Celesteela being Steel Flying type. Like I said, Steel type, so good to have, especially now with fairies running around. Celesteela, like what were we talking about? That had a lot of offensive. Tangrowth, like Tangrowth, this case, Celesteela has a lot of offensive coverage going for Earthquake, hit Steel types. And then you have good flying stab like Air Slash, and for your Steel Stab, you can run like Heavy Slam, Flash Cannon, Gyro Ball. This thing has a lot going for it. And I didn't list this on here because we're looking at it more defensively. You could also run this thing as an automized offensive sweeper. There's really not much to say on Celesteela. It's just such a bulky Pokemon. It's so hard to take down if you don't bring any stab, electric, or fire type attacks for this thing. It's just going to sit on the field, keep spamming Leech Seed, and probably Protect as well. Get all of that health back. And with, of course, the Beast Boost ability has the options to boost several stats. Celesteela can do that. You boost your defenses, I think your special attack, and maybe your speed. Actually, I don't think speed. Actually, yeah, you can't boost speed because it's base 61. But yeah, Celesteela, very good Pokemon. I can't say it enough. Just a phenomenal Pokemon to grab in League format. Such a bulky Pokemon. Bulky, which is why it is here at the number 1 spot. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for this list. If you enjoyed, then make sure to click the like button down below, and also do not forget to subscribe. If you disagree with my list or have your opinions, I don't care what you say. You can go ahead and leave your suggestions down below. If your favorite Pokemon was not on this list, whatever. And I know someone will probably say this. The reason why there's no Chansey, no Toxapex, no prominent OU walls, it's because Toxapex and Chansey aren't the best in League format. Toxapex is roughly a tier 3 Pokemon, Chansey tier 2. So they're not on this list. They might make it in other lists. But yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure to subscribe. I'm going to get the heck out of here. I'll see you guys later.